Right, settle down. Morning, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for spending your time coming to find out about EPIC. My name's Graham Clerk. I'm the EPIC Director, and I'll be looking after you for the next hour before you go off and have a drink at the Woodlands Pavilion, or sneak off. I've been involved with EPIC since its inception 19 years ago, but I've only been running it for 6. This is my 6th year of running EPIC, but I've been involved in it for all that time. And I was involved in Adventure Course before that. Phil Court over there, he's been around since the Cederberg was built. And he's also been involved in EPIC and Adventure Course for many, many, many years. And I know that Michelle van Zyl is here, or will be coming. Hello, Michelle. And she's on my EPIC Brains Trust, as we call it. And just come in, it's fine. And we're all here to present. Oh, Nadia Snyman is here as well in terms of our outreach element, and a couple of boys who are going to speak to you just now. But welcome, and I hope that after the next few minutes, I'll be as quick as possible. I hope that you will have a much better understanding of what EPIC is all about. And at the end, I'm going to give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you'd like to ask. And if you don't really want to ask me questions after this evening, in front of everyone, you can come. I'll hang around for a while afterwards, as will the other people involved. Graham Robertson is also involved in EPIC. He's unfortunately not here tonight. Yeah, what can I tell you to start with? So I reckon that a lot of you are very anxious about your sons going away for 16 days. A lot of you are very grateful that I'm taking them away for 16 days. But not everybody feels the same way as I do about my kids. So hopefully I'm going to be able to appease some of the concerns that you might have. And hopefully in chatting to you, you'll be able to speak to your kids and appease some of their fears as well, because there is sometimes an underlying anxiety. And I think that underlying anxiety is a little bit because of the unknown. And I think it's a little bit because grade 11s and 12s like to talk it up as the hardest thing they've ever had to do. And they tell the younger boys in grade 10 who are not experienced it yet how tough they are and how hard it was. So I want to try and appease some of those fears. Okay. So essentially, from the horse's mouth, and I haven't prepped these boys, I've asked 2 boys to come along and just chat to you about their experiences on EPIC. And I'm allowing them to speak first so that they can get out of here, because they don't want to be any longer than they have to be. But Balunka Maki is going to speak first, and then Sam Bay is going to speak to you, and then I'll sort of take over from there.
Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about my experience on EPIC. My experience on EPIC really changed my perspectives on things. It taught me to be more grateful, and it taught me resilience. Resilience is the main thing you have to learn. You have to learn resilience when they tell you still have 10 kilometers or 10 kilometers away from your sleeping spot and it's still 2 p.m. When you get to your sleeping spot and you can barely stand, but everyone still wants to chat. There are a few things that I think that would really help your son on EPIC. A pack of cards. It really helped me get close with a few friends where we just played cards for 6 hours on end. And I think when you pack, don't pack too much of stuff that you have to cook. Focus mainly on snacks. Pack as little as you can, because a few boys packed a lot. One boy's mother packed him a blanket. Another boy's mother packed him a liter of milk, and their bags weighed 30 kgs. And by the end, they had enough food to last them till next week. But the main things that help you on EPIC, that you do on EPIC, is get close with people that you don't normally speak to. There's some boys who are not normally in your social circle that we got to know better. We had conversations up until 1 a.m. Having no phones helped, so speaking was the only thing we could truly do. But Epic really takes you out of your comfort zone, something you really have to learn in life. You cannot always stay in your comfort zone. Epic teaches you to push beyond your limits. It teaches you the things that you can't do, you have to do. Mr. Court pushed me even when I thought I couldn't climb up Knife's Edge. He told me there's no way to get down, but we're going up Knife's Edge. Epic was not an experience that you may not be fond of in the current moment, but as soon as you're done, you speak on it on fond memories. And a lot of boys, when gents ask, would you go back on Epic? They said, I would. An Epic is not an experience that you want to go on. It's an experience you need to go on to become a better person. Thank you.
How's it, guys? Good evening. How are you? My name is Sam Bear, and last year I had the great pleasure of experiencing Epic. In the months prior, I was a little unsure. You could even say nervous and unwilling. It was difficult to imagine spending 16 days in the Cederberg with 6 of those dedicated purely to hiking. But fortunately, it turned out to be one of the most memorable experiences of my life. I'm sure you're wondering why I'm wearing a tie in that photo. Well, when my group first met with our teacher in charge, Mr. Court to the left there, he told us that we were part of the most exclusive and elite group in Bishop's history, Wolfberg Red. We were introduced to the 20-plus year tradition of wearing a tie of our choice during all our hikes. A rule courtesy of Mr. Court, of course. If my memory serves me correctly, this tradition was inspired by Tim Hamilton Smith, the former deputy principal of the college, who once declared that ties should be worn in all meetings. And if that didn't already capture my group's attention, Mr. Court's other tradition, summiting 4 mountains in 3 days, certainly did. Strangely enough, these quirks were incredibly endearing and motivating. They made us, my group, feel like we were part of something much bigger than ourselves. Although Epic seemed like a massive obstacle at first, our group persevered. All 13 of us completed the seemingly treacherous and completely off-trail journey that was our staff hike, safely and soundly, with no injuries beyond a few scratches and a mild sunburn or 2. Epic was made even more memorable because I was joined by 2 of my best mates, Jared Cowan and Ryan Wiffler. We shared a top, a lot of laughs, and one of the best experiences of our lives. If any of you have any reservations about your son's fitness or size, I'd like to offer the 3 of us as proof that there's really no need to worry. To put into perspective, imagine 3 figures, one weighing over 100 kilograms with a mild case of asthma and playing tight head prop for the under 16A rugby side. Another, trimmer and clearly a hockey boy who's about to go on first team tour next week. And lastly, a stout yet lean chap. Very sexy, very handsome on the left. And that's us. We managed Epic with ease, with 2 of us summiting 5 mountains, and all of us walking/hiking more than 50 kilometers during the staff hike. Jared, unfortunately, missed most of our solo hike due to a mild case of food poisoning. Very poor form, I know. Nevertheless, spending 16 days with Ryan and 14 with Jared was a definite highlight in my Epic. We hiked through vast valleys, past beautiful views, and had more than enough time to reflect, and of course, to lament about the seemingly never-ending hiking. This tremendous accomplishment and once-in-a-lifetime escapade would not have been possible without the dedication of all staff who give their time and energy to Epic. I can assure all of you, Bishops takes every possible precaution to ensure the safety, well-being, and enjoyment of your sons whilst they're on Epic. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Just a little taste of how they feel about it. And we didn't prep them at all, but they'll be getting the check in the post. So the first things first, before we get down to anything about Epic, if you go to the Bishop's website, I've just copied and pasted this onto the PowerPoint. because technology is not really what it is, and sometimes it goes down. So it can't go down on a PowerPoint, I hope. There's a link to Epic, and if you click on that link, it takes you to the Epic page, and that tells you all about Epic. All right? That particular link, called Parent Communication Documents, is probably the one that you need to see or go to whenever you want to find out something about Epic. And what it takes you to is some parent communication. I'm going to send you 6 letters in the course of the year about Epic, and they'll all be there. You can see there's one from this year. That's my introduction. That's why you're here. And the others are 2024. And just in case somebody tries to correct me, they're deliberately there because sometimes people like to look ahead. And from year to year, things don't change a great deal, although dates and times change and people. I deliberately leave it there. So when letter number 2 comes out, I'll take the 2024 letter off and I'll put the 2025 letter up there. You'll receive it via email, and obviously it'll go there as well. And then the things like the consent form under documents, Epic equipment, et cetera, is all there for your perusal. So before you shoot off that email to me, asking me a question about Epic, the information is actually all there. And I'd really like you to tell your kids about it. Now, we obviously tell the kids about it as well. But if your kid is anxious about Epic or concerned about something, all the information they could possibly need is right there, including this PowerPoint presentation, which I'll link later. So what is Epic? We go to the Cederberg Mountains between Citrusdale and Clanwilliam, and we go there for 16 days, as I'm sure you know. And this is not uncommon in boys' schools and in girls' schools to do some sort of an outdoor program. St. Cyprian's, for example, takes their grade 9 girls away for 21 days. Somerset College takes their girls and boys, grade 9s, away for 28 days. Rondebosch takes their kids away for 10 days. Sachs has just started. They're doing something that we did 20 years ago, which is adventure course, very similar to our adventure course. They go also for about a week to 10 days. So these programs are around. This is something that Bishops has been doing really since the 1950s. So in the 1950s, we created something, well, I wasn't around, adventure course. And if you're an old boy of the school, you might be au fait with this sort of thing. But adventure course essentially was 7 or 8 days in the mountains, in the Cederberg Mountains. And boys hiked with staff in little groups of 8 or 9 and 1 staff member for 3 or 4 nights. And then the staff withdrew, and the boys would hike for another 3 nights without staff and without sat phones and without much communication, and then finish off at Algeria in the middle of the Cederberg, not this country, and then we'd have a night together. It was normally about 50 boys from the grade that did that, and then everybody got on the bus the next day and went home. And essentially that hiking still underpins what we now call Epic, which has been going for 19 years. We still have 6 or 7, depending on the group, days of hiking. Not in a row. We break it up into 2 different hikes, but essentially the boys are still doing exactly the same thing, but the program has developed and evolved and been fleshed out to 16 days of outdoor education. Epic's not a boot camp. I want you to understand that. We're not trying to train boys like perhaps boys were trained once, young men were trained once in the army. We're not trying to do kampstaldraad. We're not trying to break boys or push them to make them into men. This is essentially outdoor education for your boys. And as I go through this evening, you'll understand the different things that we do with them. So what do we hope to achieve? We want to give them some form of outdoor education because we recognize that this is becoming less and less important or less and less available to boys in the world. And we think it's a really important part of their education. We send them off without their cell phones and their AirPods, and all the other things that they use. And so they get 16 days, a 16-day break from technology, and I don't have to explain to you that that's a good thing. The boys spoke about resilience just now. We feel that those 16 days away develops resilience in boys. It is exactly the same if boys go on exchange or if they go on an overseas hockey tour or rugby tour. It creates resilience because you're slightly out of your comfort zone. It creates independence for boys and codependence because the boys have to work together to get through this thing, the 16 days, even if it's just getting through the 16 days or through a hike or through a cycle or any of the myriad of activities that they're involved in. And we also believe it's a rite of passage. We love, in education, we love a bit of a rite of passage. So what do I mean by a rite of passage? Well, first of all, it's perfectly placed, we feel, at the end of grade 10, because basically when the boys come back in January, they are in grade 11 and they're in the final phase of high school. And grade 11 and 12 is very, very short. In reality, they're finishing things off. And the way that universities work today, boys' marks are important in grade 11 because they have to get into res and they have to start applying for university. And their marks actually do count earlier and earlier and earlier. So it's that perfect break between the junior phase of high school and the senior phase of high school. We start off with the blessing of the boots ceremony, which is essentially essentially a chapel service where we send they bring their boots and so on, and they wear their epic stuff, and you're invited as well. And we send them off into the mountains a few days before epic, metaphorically speaking. And then we ask parents. It used to be fathers, but not anymore. It's parents, anybody, grandparents, whatever, to write a letter or a bunch of letters that they will receive on their solo, their 24-hour solo. And then on the fourth, I'll explain what the solo is later. And the fourth thing is that a father or significant parental or paternal figure will travel to the son's base on the last night, be included in the final tribal council, eat and spend an evening with their son and the night with their son, and then travel home together with their son. And that's how we end it. And boys go straight from their home and on holiday. They don't come back to school after that. And they need that because they've been away for 16 days. Okay, so how does EPIC work? Logically speaking, this is detailed, so you don't have to remember this stuff, but it does help some people. 16 days away, the last day we come home, so it's actually 15 nights, 5 rotations of 3 nights each. And those rotations, so everyone does 5 rotations. They do 3 rotations at 3 base camps. There's actually 4 base camps, but they will go to 3 of the base camps, and they will do 2 rotations of hiking. And one is a staff hike. In other words, a group of boys will hike with a couple of staff members, and the other is what we call a boy hike, which is where the staff withdraw. It's always the second hike, and the boys do that hike on their own. Groups, there's about 130 to 140 boys going on EPIC. So the group constitutes about a maximum of 28 boys. Hiking groups are half that. So there's a red and a blue group, and they will break up into those 2 groups of 14 when they go hiking. It's the same group will hike in the first hike and in the second hike. Boys are paired with a friend. They get to choose the friend that they want to be with for the duration of EPIC. So that boy will be with them in base camps, and that boy will be with them when they hike. And that boy will do activities with them. Houses and abilities are mixed. We find that this is the best recipe for getting to know people. It's not a great idea to put 14 founders boys together, or schoolhouse or kid house boys together. You don't grow as much, and so we mix boys up deliberately. Another part of it, one of the things that we do on EPIC is a 24-hour solo. It sounds horrendous, but it's not. We plonk a boy under a tree next to a river for 24 hours, and with a little tent, and he and a ground sheet and a cooker and his little EPIC box, which looks a bit like this, with his food in it, and we leave him there for 24 hours with a letter from his parents, from you, and it's the only time he has away from 14 or 28 other boys in 16 days. And we find that that's a really great time for them to grow and develop in different ways. They can also contemplate on what has happened and what's to happen, and they can think a little bit about what their parents have had to say to them. They also get a little workbook that they can use voluntarily if they want to. It gives you a bit of interesting information, a couple of exercises to do if they wish to do that. And then how this whole jigsaw, how this whole thing works, mechanism works, is that boys will hike between bases, or they'll cycle between bases, or sometimes they'll be driven from one base to another. And that's how the whole system operates. As I explained again, there's a little bit of repetition. There are 2 hikes. The first hike is a staff hike. It includes at least one peak that the boys will climb. Sometimes in a particular hike, there are multiple peaks. This is with staff, normally 3 staff, sometimes 2, but normally 3, and the 14 boys in that hiking group. And then the second hike is a boy hike that is without staff and in that same hiking group. Right, then the next thing I need to tell you is that we have 2 types of bases that the boys go to. Remember I said there's 4 bases. So there's 2 what we call action bases, and there's 2 recovery or outreach bases that we have. So the boys do very different activities at the different bases. So our first action base is the water base, where everybody spends 1 rotation. And that's the stuff that they do at that water base. Okay, I can move on, huh? Yeah. All right, Sundrift. Many of you will know Sundrift if you've been to the Cederberg before. Sundrift is the other action base, and they do the activities that are linked there at that action base. Everybody goes this year, everybody goes to Sundrift. So everybody gets 2 action bases and a recovery stroke outreach base. Okay. Then the 2 recovery outreach bases. The first one is Elizabethfontein, which is up the Pockhase Pass. And there's a school there that we have a very good relationship with. And Nadia will tell you about it a little bit later. Other than the school, where they work with the kids, and they also do maintenance at the school, they do a rock art trail and bush hacking and play a game called rugby, which is I'm actually not sure about the rules, but it's a tradition there. And they fish. And at Yamaka, which is the other recovery base, there's a much smaller school called Grootkloof, and the boys do shooting. The 2 are not linked. And this is one of the bases where they do those 24-hour solos. The other base is Sundrift, where they do 24-hour. Some of the boys will do 24-hour solos. Incidentally, the 24-hour solos only happen in the last 3 rotations of Epic, so the boys are well settled before we don't just stick them under a tree on night 1. All right. Some boys will hike first up. Some boys will hike for the first time in the 2nd rotation. There's one group that will only hike in the 3rd rotation. But the staff hike will always come before the boy hike. Okay, so how can you get involved in this as well? That's what Nadia is here to speak to you about. So she's going to talk to you a little bit about the outreach that we do in the Cederberg, and then I'll continue.
Thank you, Graham. Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Graham, for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am the liaison between the Epic Parents Committee, the school, and the 2 wonderful schools we partner with in the Cederberg region, Grootkloof and Elizabethfontein. So this evening, I'll just be giving you a brief overview of our involvement with these schools and how they fit into the broader Epic program. As Graham mentioned, each Epic base has its own unique set of activities. At Elizabethfontein and Yamaka, meaningful interaction with the local schools form a key part of the boys' daily experience. Elizabethfontein serves about 250 learners from grade R to grade 7, with Grootkloof as a smaller cohort of 40 learners. Each year, both schools send us a wish list of items that they would like to use for improvements for their school, from essential supplies to infrastructure supplies and infrastructure upgrades. In the past, we've undertaken projects such as building jungle gyms, installing washing machines, and repainting the facilities. During the time at Elizabethfontein, our boys actively contribute to these projects like painting, sanding, and assisting with installations. Mr. Graham Robertson manages the larger donations and the logistics related to significant items such as paint, beds, and building materials. It is important to note that these wish lists that the schools send, they are aspirational, and we are not expected to fulfill every request, but we do our best to support where we can. In addition to physical contributions, we also run daily arts and crafts sessions with the children at the school. The boys assist with these activities while also practicing their Afrikaans, so dit is 2 vleie met 1 klap. When it comes to donations, each learner receives a stationery and toiletry pack, and each teacher is gifted a thoughtful care pack, curated annually by the Parents Committee. All of this is funded through donations and the proceeds from our annual thrift sale, which we have in October every year. We rely on donations from the Bishop's community and sell these items at a very affordable price for our staff, specifically our support and ground staff. Now, the big question, where do parents come in? Ideally, we'd love to have parents or small groups of parents taking ownership of the following key areas: the thrift sale, for example, sending out reminders, tracking and collecting donations, and coordinating logistics and admin. Physical donations, so the organizing of wish list items, preparing stationery, toiletry, and teacher gift packs, and the arts and crafts like planning age-appropriate activities, sourcing materials, and managing packaging. I understand this is quite a bit to take in, but please don't feel overwhelmed. We've developed quite a detailed breakdown of each process, and I'm more than happy to support and guide any volunteers throughout. Please take some time to think it over. If there is something you'd be interested in getting involved in, please let Graham know and he will put us in contact. Thank you so much for your time and for your continued support of the EPIC Outreach Program.
Okay. Sorry, let me get this back to where it was. So I've put a couple of things on the stage. I'm sure you can see them. Just to give you an idea, but and you can come and have a look at them later if you want to. And the first thing that happens is, I know you pay a lot of money for your boys to go on EPIC, and you might think, well, what are they getting out of it other than 16 days of food? And the answer is, well, we throw in a jacket as well. It's a 3-in-1 jacket. I love the sales pitch. 3-in-1 jacket. That's the first part. That's the second part, and together it makes 3. Okay, it's a really good jacket, and we've got a good relationship with High Tech, which we've had for many years. And the reality is that it does get very cold in the mountains. And as you can see from the photographs here, the temperature can drop to 0 degrees quite quickly if a cold front rolls over. Now, most days are 35 degrees in the Cederberg, particularly at that time of the year. But if it's 35, 40 degrees in Clanwilliam or Citrusdal, the reality is up in the mountains, it's a lot cooler because it's a lot higher. And at night, it does get cold. So the boys will wear their jacket every night. And obviously, if cold weather rolls in, you're very grateful to have that jacket. So that's one of the things that comes along with EPIC. It's quite important that you buy your son some boots for EPIC, but I would hold off on buying boots for him just yet, because he's probably going to grow, and that's very annoying. I have a grade 9 who's taller than I am, and he grows out of his shoes every 3 weeks. So you might ask, why boots and why not trail shoes? And the answer is all the injuries we've ever had are with trail shoes. Not that there's anything wrong with trail shoes, but boys tend to go over on their ankles quite easily in trail shoes because their ankles are not as developed as they could be because they're young. So we recommend that boys wear boots. We also recommend that those boots are one size bigger than what they normally wear, but they'll be able to try them on. Don't one size bigger because your feet swell when you walk. So just take the advice of the guys who are going to help you to buy your boots, whether it's at Sportsman's Warehouse or somewhere else, high tech or wherever. And that I suggest you do in the third term. The old adage that you need to walk your boots in, of course, is rubbish. So boys can actually get their boots, and we do allow them to walk their boots in and wear them to school in the third term. But you don't really need to walk your boots in. You should be able to wear them immediately. The problem is that boys don't really take care of their feet. So when you get to a place where you're having a rest, you should take your shoes off and your socks off and let them breathe a little bit. And clean your boots out and so on, put them back on. And that's something that we try to impart to the boys in the course of the year. But I would wait as late as possible to buy the boots. Perhaps the middle of the third term would be a good idea. You're also going to need a backpack for him, and there's no reason to go and buy a fancy new backpack. There are lots of backpacks available. Every grade 11 has one, and every grade 12 has one as well. So you basically want a backpack that looks a little bit like that. You can look at this PowerPoint presentation closer to the time when you go to buy it. And I'm sure that there'll be something in your family somewhere that you can use as well. Otherwise, a new one is also nice to have. We provide you with maps. There's a map over there. We provide the boys with ground sheets, which can be used as shelters. They're quite big ground sheets. What the boys tend to do is they take these ground sheets, we give 1 to 2 of them. It's quite a big ground sheet, and then they put them all together. So all 14 of them have this big square which they sleep on when they're in the mountains. We give them storm shelters for hiking, and that's just for emergency situations. If it's pouring with rain and they haven't got any shelter, we give them 2 boxes, which look like that. One is a solo box with a 24-hour solo that they're going to put their food in and hand in before the start of Epic. And the other one is the boys' hiking box, where 2, 3, or 4 days of food is put in it, depending on what hike your kids are going to do. The hiking food for the first hike, whether he's hiking in the first or second or third rotation, goes straight into his bag and remains there until such time as he goes on his first hike. We give them first aid kits, and we provide each group hiking with a satellite phone, which links to my cell phone and various other cell phones, well, any telephone number that you need to phone. Safety is our chief concern, and something that you're probably most concerned about. Sorry about the pictures. These things do happen. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. Every activity you do has risk related to it. You send your kids to a school where you play rugby, that's got risk attached to it. Okay, you cross the street, there's risk attached to it. Going on Epic, there's an element of risk. It's a very small risk, but it's a risk that's attached to it. So safety is quite an important part of what we are concerned about and think about. We want to try and reduce risk as much as possible and increase the safety without being ridiculous. So there's about 80 Bishop staff members are involved in Epic from beginning to end. We rotate staff in every 3 days and out every 3 days. But there's always several Bishop staff at each base camp. I'm on Epic the whole time, and if I'm not there, then there'll be somebody designated in my place. But invariably I'll be there. There's satellite phones for all hikes provided. There's maps and route cards provided. I've got examples over there. First aid kits. We send 30 volunteer boys on a first aiders course, and we divide those boys equally amongst the 10 groups that are going to be hiking. Our wild medics, paramedics essentially, are based at Yamaka and move from base to base wherever they're needed, and are there the entire time that we are on Epic. And they are experts of the wild medics in mountain rescue and are very knowledgeable about the area that we're going into. We've been involved with wild medics since our inception, since the inception of Epic. So we work very, very well together. The two Clan William doctors, GPs on standby, who we have relationships with, And there's actually an excellent hospital in Clanwilliam if it ever comes to that scenario. I'd like to, that's a photograph from, I was in the Cedarburg now over the Easter weekend, and that's one of the photographs we took. Beautiful place, isn't it? So how do we prepare boys for EPIC? So we can't prepare boys, I don't think there's a school in the country that prepares boys more for EPIC, because we start now. And well, we've already done it. The physical assessment in LO takes place, where they assess boys over a variety of different activities, and we offer free fitness sessions with the SPW team, that's sports, what is it, sport something and wellness? Performance and wellness, there we go. These boys are identified, there are about 20 boys identified every year who are a bit concerned about, they might be overweight, they might be underweight, they might have a couple of discrepancies in terms of their fitness levels, and we speak to those boys and meet with them and chat to them about going and speaking to the SPW team and doing some training for EPIC. We do a beginner cycle course in the third term that lasts 3 afternoons. We do swimming lessons if boys require swimming lessons, which are also optional, of course. There are LO life orientation rotations in terms 3 and 4. I think it's 6 lessons that the boys rotate through. Thursday afternoon talks every second week in terms 3 and 4 by a variety of different speakers we bring in, and talks about food, talks about snakes, talks about the Cedarburg leopard, talks about cycling, etc., etc., etc. We really prepare the boys very, very well for EPIC and get them thinking along the lines of what they need to do between now and the start of EPIC. Then on the last day of the third term, it's actually not the last day, sorry, it's the second last day. The last day is just Eucharist and assembly and house meetings. On the second last day, we send all the grade 10s up Devil's Peak in their groups. It's a huge logistical nightmare, but we get them up and we get them down most of the time, and 100% success so far. And that is the reason we do a peak, is because they are going to do a peak on EPIC. So it's a really good measure of where they're at for themselves and for staff who are hiking with them, because they'll be the people that will be hiking them up at EPIC. They can see who the boys who are struggling and who the boys who are absolutely fine. It's also well placed because it's about 6 or 7 weeks before EPIC. And that's a fantastic opportunity. 6 or 7 weeks is a great amount of time to get really fit if you're not. And so please, I encourage you to make sure that your son actually goes on this particular hike and doesn't duck and dive out of it. I spoke about the first aid course, which happens at the end of the third term. It's a 3-day course. Boys get let off school for the first aid course. And then they find out it's really hard because it goes from 8 in the morning until 5 in the evening. And the guys in boarding are less encouraged each year to go because they just want to get out of school. Not a great idea. And EPIC Training Week from the 11th to the 14th of November is the week before EPIC. It's 3 or 4 days where we really do proper training with them. And one of the things we do on that EPIC Training Week is we take the boys on a backpack. They have their full backpack with them, and they go for a 4 or 5 hour hike on Table Mountain, and then they know whether their pack is too heavy or not. And those boys whose mums and dads have packed their packs realize that maybe they should get involved in the system. Because your pack really shouldn't be more than about 15 or 16 kgs. Because if it is, it's really tough to carry that for any length of time. And that's something that's please in that EPIC Training Week, don't organize doctor's appointments for your son and orthodontist appointments and whatever. Please make sure that your son comes to that, because even though he doesn't think he needs to be there, he does. It's more important to be properly prepared for EPIC than to go to a physio appointment or whatever it is. They can do that in the afternoon. Yes. Yeah. So one of the things we did, term 3 normally, and a little bit of term 4, yeah. So what we've done in the past is we've provided opportunities to take boys on a variety of different hikes. But to be honest, last year, there were only about 3 or 4 boys who ever put their hand up for that. And that's indicative of boys who are very busy, sometimes, or boys that think Epic's going to be absolutely fine. And the reality is, in my experience, Epic is all mental, mostly mental, and a little bit of physical. So if you're mentally prepared for Epic, you can really do well on Epic. If you're not mentally prepared for Epic and you're really fit, you can do really badly on Epic. So it's really getting your mind right for Epic, your son's mind right for Epic, and making sure that if he needs to get some sort of additional physical fitness, that he gets that. If he can't cycle, he needs to go and practice cycling. He needs to go on the cycling course. If he can't swim, he needs to go and do some of the lessons. If he's scared about hiking, then he needs to get out there and go for a hike with you. And if you're not happy to go with him, then to put him on one of these practice hikes. But I deliberately didn't put it in there because so few boys put their hands up for those hikes. So just a little bit about food. I'm going to go quickly now. All your meals in your base camps are provided, and the guys get fed really, really well. They do. They will not go hungry. They get really, really good food. It's not pasta and sauce. They get, although a lot of them would probably like that. It's really, really good food. But obviously, boys choose their own food for the staff hike and for the boy hike as well. And I've explained how that's going to be packed. Last night, when dads or father figures come up for the last night, we encourage dads to bring up a steak or two, or pizza or a burger, whatever your son would like to eat, because he has been in the mountains for 16 days, and he'd really appreciate a little bit of a treat. If you're halal, if you're Muslim and you eat halal food, then the halal food is taken up from Wembley and is provided at all the base camps because they don't provide it from the spa out there. And if your son has any special diet requirements, then just engage with me and we'll make a plan to ensure that he gets what he needs. So finally, what can you do? Well, the first thing you can do is you can read the 6 letters I send. All right? I don't send them all at the same time, but I send them when they need to be sent. So when it's time for you to buy boots, for argument's sake, or your backpack, I send you an email that says, right, now it's time to buy your son a backpack, or go and find a backpack, or go and get your son boots. All right, I'll send them at the appropriate times. And as I said, it's only 6 emails, because I know I've got a son at Bishop's and a daughter at St. Cyprian's. I know how much email you get. Please submit that consent form that I asked you to send. If you haven't submitted it yet, you're already late. But it's okay, no one's keeping score. Please send in the consent form, which allows your son to go on Epic. And please will you update his medical details on our records. Those medical details are not just medical details, he has asthma or whatever it might be, but they're also there to identify dietary requirements or any special dispensations or whatever that your son needs for that time. Told you about the boots. Quite important that he starts, okay, sounds patronizing to say, but please don't pack his backpack for him. All right, get him to do it. All right? Get him to collect his soda box and his boy hike box from full court when the time comes himself. Because if you're a parent and you go to full court, you are going to get shouted at. Am I right, Phil? Okay. Please speak to him about his behavior on Epic. So we constantly under the conch here in terms of behavior. Now, most boys behave absolutely fine on Epic, but behavior is not just being naughty. It's also in terms of things like it's really not okay to throw because your backpack's a bit heavy, to throw your rubbish onto the side of the Cederberg Mountain. It's something that we speak quite a lot to the boys about. Because we have had problems in the past, although last year was actually fine. And I'd really like you to speak to him about that and help him to get his mind right for Epic. Direct him to the website, get him to get physically ready for Epic, particularly in terms of cycling and hiking. Appease his anxiety around hiking, sleeping out in the open, the 24-hour solo, being away for 16 days, if he is anxious about those things, because a lot of boys won't be. But more than a few will be. Every year we ask parents for vehicles, 4x4s, that they are prepared to lend us. Last year, 5 parents lent us vehicles. It was great. It enables us to do the various activities we need to do, tow boats, make sure that there's a safety car in front of the cycling. I get a car to drive around the Cederberg because I need to get from one place to another. If you have a vehicle that you are happy to lend us, we would really appreciate that. And if you're keen, and there always are parents who are very keen, which is wonderful, please join that parents committee. It's not a hell of a lot of work, particularly if there's a number of you on the group. Divide the tasks up, and it becomes quite easy. And I know that many of you are very, very busy as well. And please contact me with any concerns directly. There's medical concerns, concern about your son going on Epic. If you've decided that your son's not going on Epic because you've decided to send him on a private visitorship, as we call it, then I just need to know about that as soon as possible, please. I say to parents, I'm going to say it again, I encourage you to send your son on Epic. And not to avoid it. I think it's something that's good for boys, but I can't convince you of that other than to present to you today. Okay, and then that's a vehicle I was given a couple of years ago to use. And then it's time for questions and answers. First, I want to just ask, is there anything that I've left out, Phil?
Yeah, you left out the high-tech voucher, Greek voucher.
Yes, the high-tech voucher. Okay, so we give the high-tech give the boys, because we get these jackets at a really good price, and they come and speak to us about boots, and they've got quite a good selection of boots. They give a 20% off anything you buy at high-tech, including your boots, which we give to the boys. And as soon as I get those high-tech vouchers in, I distribute to the boys, and then they lose them, and they come and ask me for another one. But we deal with it. That's fine. Okay, and it's anything anyone buys. So it's actually, you can buy a whole lot of stuff from high-tech and you get that voucher, and it's renewed. You can use it several times. So yeah, that's the one thing. Michelle, anything else? Okay, so if there's any questions that you want to ask, please ask them. Before you ask a question, can I say one more thing? Every year I get parents who say to me, why did the fathers come up for the last night? Okay. And we decided many, many years ago that fathers weren't involved as much as they should be in boys' lives. And this was a great opportunity for dads to be involved, because it's a real boys' thing to do, to go out to the mountains together. And that is why we decided to use dads. And if you've met my wife, you will know that she wouldn't tolerate any nonsense from me. So it's not a sexist decision that has been made. It's just a logical, practical, and a wonderful opportunity for dads to spend a little bit of time with them. And I understand that not everybody has a dad, and then those situations we sort out on an individual basis. You can send a grandfather, you can send an uncle, you can send a brother. But that's how we do things, and I'm very happy to engage with you about it. Ma'am. No, we do not sleep at the top, but we do the Wolfberg cracks. So a lot of groups, most groups will go down or up the Wolfberg cracks, yes. Yep, a lot of the groups will go past multi-square. So, okay, so there are 3 parts to the Cederberg. There's A, B, and C. And B is burnt. Sorry, A is burnt. So Pakhuis Pass, all the way through to Heuningvlei, is out of bounds to us this year, and anybody. No one can hike there. Even, I think, maybe end of February, beginning of March. It was quite recently. And they've closed that area for a year. So we're hiking in areas B and A. Sorry, let's try that again. B and C. Area B is where the Wolfberg Cracks are and Tafelberg is. Area C is where Snoeberg is. It's the other side. So if you think about it logically, boys will hike the one way and then they'll hike the other. So they get to see, most boys will get to see both sides of the Cederberg. There are 3 hikes that start in the southern Cederberg, near near Citrusdal, and they see a whole different, they go through the Mountain Club of South Africa territory and the Kromrivier territory and so on. So they might not do both sides, but they certainly will do the majority of the Cederberg. No. No, there are 10 groups, 10 hiking groups, all hiking at different times from different places. No, all groups are equally. So the groups are randomly selected. We assess. We do a rudimentary assessment of boys, A1, 2, or 3, and remember they're with partners, and we try to make all the groups equally strong or weak, whichever way you want to look at it. So there'll be some really strong boys in a group, some rather weak boys in the group, and some average boys in the group, and we do that throughout. Most boys are going to do the Wolfberg Cracks. If you send me an email, I'll make sure you'll send us a Wolfberg Cracks. Any other questions? Don't be shy. All right, well, if I've answered all your questions, that's great. If you have any other questions for me afterwards, please come and chat to me. I hope I've allayed some of your concerns. I do hope that your boys will have a wonderful time on EPIC. The majority of boys do. If you read the yearbook, most boys refer to EPIC as the best part of their high school career. Not all, but most do. And we certainly enjoy taking them there, and we see that a massive growth in boys who have gone through this program. So please send me emails if you need to, or make an appointment to see me. Come and chat to me now. Thank you very much for coming. It's 6:53, so you have 7 minutes to get to the Woodlands Pavilion if you're going to go and get something to eat and drink there. Thank you very much.